Hi there. Today I'm going to be doing an overview of my Sledgehammer lower and its VSS handguard. This model specifically is the Sledgehammer VSS, which includes a more angled front. This lower takes Grizzin magazines, or the Milsig G-Mag essentially. It feeds directly into the chamber. There is no detent system or ball on deck system, but it does require the use of extended lowers. So this is the standard lower that comes with the G-Mag, and the extended lower just increases the height that it pops up so that this will load the last round into the chamber. It's a drop-in exchange, and the G-Mag is toolless, so super easy. So, a couple overviews of the G-Mag lower and the VSS front. This one is actually designed for a client at request to have the angled. The standard version will have a slightly different front where it comes to a squared off front of the magazine well, but handguards are still very possible to fit over that. The Sledgehammer lower is completely modless. There is no modification required to the Hammer 7, and it comes with a trigger that will come installed. The G-Mag requires that the trigger moves farther back, and so it comes with a trigger. This version is a slider trigger, so rather than hinging, it actually just moves back. It's actually a fairly soft and nice trigger pull. The magazine release on the Sledgehammer lower is a paddle release, and it is a camming paddle. I don't think I can quite get the light. Yeah, there it is. So rather than just this paddle locking into the magazine, there's actually a small camming action that moves forward and back, and that makes for a very smooth magazine release. So it's hard to do upside down. So I'm going to disassemble this, and then I will just kind of prop the pieces back on to show how they go on. One important thing is, due to the AR grip moving backwards in relation to the trigger, the tank does not go on if your AR grip has this flange, this tongue. It does not generally go on well with a Gorilla or First Strike reg. It absolutely gets in the way. I do have a tank, I think, on the way with a Ninja reg, and that might fit, but be prepared, you might need to remove the trigger frame. Some folks like to use an inline on-off as well, and that should alleviate this issue. So there is one bolt that holds the grip frame on, the grip itself on. All the screws in this set are 1032. There is one screw holding the ASA on, and one screw at the front. Before I can actually remove the lower, I have to remove the handguard, which is held with one screw that screws directly into this VSS lower. And off it comes. The handguard uses the pump guide screw to actually stay on, and because this is I think it's a Recon Wrap 4-barrel. It's a 7/8 inch OD, and I have designed the handguard to accept all the way up to I think a 1 inch, so it'll fit a Hammerhead, or I think a Nemesis. I don't have a Nemesis to test. So because of that, there's this spacer that goes on the barrel, and that just helps so that there's no wobble between the handguard and the barrel. In addition to that, the handguard will slip around this the barrel ring, the breech ring. That, the guide rod, and then the screw that holds it in actually makes for a fairly sturdy handguard even without the barrel. I am making this handguard in 2 lengths. So you can see it. I think this is the 10 centimeter, and I think this is like 22. 20. So they are 10 and 20 centimeters. Okay, moving on to the lower. Now that I've got the handguard off, I can remove the front screw. It attaches basically the same as the Hammer 7 stock lower, but with different screws because the lengths are different, and I'm using a different head so that the screw holes fit inside the tang. All of these are, oh geez, it wore off. I want to say the 30 seconds. Anyways, just so you can see the screws. Okay, as you can see, this is a completely stock Hammer 7 upper, no modifications. The lower itself now is completely off, and you can see the slider trigger up in there. The slider trigger does not have a bolt lock forward. The stock trigger, once the bolt has been charged back on a system with air, the trigger actually holds the bolt forward. Because it was designed as a pump, that was so that you didn't, I guess, knock it out of battery and try to fire. With this one, because it's really designed as a bolt action build, though you can still use it with pump, there's nothing at the front of this that'll stop that. I decided that because of the slider trigger, and the slider trigger being so much better than a hinge trigger with a very strange pull, that was one feature I just wasn't going to be able to do. So, that's the lower. To install the lower, you would just take off your stock lower, take this one, put it on, install your ASA. Just being a little grumpy. And now it's on there. Now I'm going to actually take this tank off to show you one other very close clearance issue, and that is with a Gorilla reg or a First Strike reg. It will clear this part of the lower, but just. So, one other feature of the lower is that it is designed for a Typhon Tactical straight ASA. There is actually room in it. If you are using a tank guide rod, this one's a straight because I use it with a CO2 tank. But you can actually screw that in, attach it to your ASA before installing into the body, but then it works. And that is the overview and teardown of the Sledgehammer lower.